Hello, welcome to
Hello,
Verbling.
nice to see you.
Hey, Heidi. You were in the class very quickly. Well, welcome, hello, and welcome everyone out there. Welcome to Verbling. Hi, I'm teacher Oakley, and this class will be the first in a short series of 3 classes at this particular time, today, tomorrow, and the next day. Today, we're going to talk about modal verbs, and I'm going to be introducing them. We'll try, students will try a little practice as well, but there's different ways to consider and talk about modal verbs. So today we're going to do that. We're going to kind of look at different aspects in different ways and try to understand, get an idea of what modal verbs are, what they do, and how they're used grammatically. Okay, and then tomorrow's class, we're going to concentrate on the main uses of modals. Tomorrow's class will look at possibility and probability and how modals are used. It'll be much clearer. And the next day, we'll look at how to use modals of obligation and permission. Okay, which is the next 2 days of the classes will be much more straightforward. Today, I'm going to be looking at modals from different directions. So please, if feel free to ask me any questions at any time. Absolutely. I know you should probably have questions, so don't be shy. All right. Let me welcome some others who have joined Heidi and I. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, teacher Oli. How are you today?
Oh, I'm okay. Thanks, Jonathan. How are you?
Oh, I am really fine. Thank you.
Terrific. Hello, Roger. Always a pleasure.
Hi, teacher. How are
Hey,
you?
Roger. I'm doing okay. Thanks. Uh, hello, Alexander. Nice to see you again.
Okay, hello. Yeah, thanks. Nice to see you again too, guys.
All right.
I,
Thanks for joining.
okay.
Okay. And hello, Min.
Hello, teacher.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm okay. I'm okay, guys. But there's a man here fixing my plumbing today. So he's fixing the drainage. It's a little stinky. Woo. Yeah. So I'm trying not to breathe. But other than that, I'm doing fine. Okay. Let's get started looking at modal verbs. All right. What are these things? All right. Do a screen share here. Okay. Modal verbs are special verbs. Okay. They behave much more like auxiliary verbs. There are some very important differences, however. Modal verbs do not take an S ending in the third person that's called conjugating a verb. Okay, he speaks Chinese, for example. When we use a modal, notice that we say he can speak Chinese, not he can speaks Chinese. So a big difference there grammatically. She should be here by 9. Okay. All right. She bees here? No. She. Yeah. Well, she is here. Okay. She will be here. Of course, is how we would say it without the modal, future tense. Okay. So that's one point to notice. Next, you're going to use not to make modal verbs negative, even in simple present, simple past. He should not be late, for example. They might not come to the party. Okay. Most modals, well, really, all modals can be made negative. All right. Should, might, can, can't. Should, shouldn't. Might, mightn't. Again, normally when we do this, when we're speaking, at least, we speak in a contracted form. So we would speak shouldn't. Mightn't is okay. You can do that. You may say that, or you may say full form just because it's hard to say. Okay. There are many modal verbs which cannot be used in past tenses or future tenses. We are not going to say he will can go with us. It's really not possible. She must have studied very hard. We have to do that in a totally different way. She must have studied very hard, for example, would be okay. All right. Common modal verbs. These are the most common. There are others which we will talk about. Let's just, for the sake of practicing and so I can hear what you guys can do with modal verbs, let's just try these out. Let me quickly welcome Pablo. Hello, Pablo. Hi.
Hi, Oakley.
Hi. Welcome to the class.
Thanks.
Okay. We're going to just try out some modals. We're going to just go down the list here. Just form me a sentence. I'll give you a modal, and let's see if you can make an appropriate sentence. I want to hear where you guys are at. So, Roger, make me a sentence with can, please.
I can swim in the summer.
I can swim in the summer. Thanks. Yep. Fine. All right. So here he's showing his ability. Yep, that's fine. Keep it simple. That's perfectly okay. Now, how about could? Jonathan.
He could speak Portuguese.
He could speak Portuguese. Okay, perfectly fine. Okay, nothing wrong with that. He has the ability to do something. We use can and could. Could we often use for in the past. He could speak Portuguese, but he forgot. He forgot how. Okay. Min, can you try making a sentence with may?
I may travel to the beach next week.
Okay. Showing possibility or probability. I may travel to the beach next week. Okay. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. 50-50, possibly. Very good. Min. All right. You guys got this, no problem. Pablo, how about might? Pablo?
Okay,
Pablo?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, I don't know. I use this phone.
Okay. I suppose you're asking permission, right? Is your
Yes.
intention? Okay. There we go. Very good. Modal verbs are used to ask permission or to describe obligation sometimes. So yes, that's perfectly correct. Might I use this phone? Okay, you may ask that way. Very good. Okay, Roger, how about must?
Must. I must to study for the exam.
Aha. Okay. Here is something else that we're going to learn here, hopefully. Usually, a modal is followed by, in fact, this is the infinitive form of the verb. Roger is correct. However, usually we use the infinitive without to, or it's Just so you know, not that it's particularly important, but just so you know, that's called a bare infinitive. Not really important that you know that what it's technically grammatically called, but I must study for my test. You're going to use a bare infinitive. In other words, no to, no preposition to in there. Okay. Suna?
Hello.
Good
Hi, Kelly.
evening. I always have to think. Good evening, Suna. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
All right. We're messing around with modal verbs today. Okay, so I'm going to throw you right in. I just want to get an idea of how you guys handle a few modal verbs. Can you make a sentence with ought to?
You ought to do it.
You ought, okay. You ought to do it. All right. All right. We use ought to just like should, to give advice or to show obligation. All right. You ought to do it. There's a good reason you should do it. You ought to do. Now, I just told Roger that we use a bare infinitive in his example. I must study. Okay? This is where modals can be confusing. Because with ought to, most modals, you're always going to use a bare infinitive. However, ought to, you always have to use the true infinitive. You always use to every time with ought to. There you go. A complete contradiction to what I just said. Aren't modals fun? Okay. Okay. Suna, your example is perfectly fine. You ought to do it. Okay. It's all right. Keep it simple. It's easier to understand. Jonathan, can you try forming a sentence with shall?
Yes, teacher. You should get insurance for your car.
You shall get insurance for your car. Yeah, okay, technically speaking, grammatically speaking, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. You can use shall in basically the same way you use will, which is what Jonathan's doing there, or you can use shall to make an offer. Shall I get you some cookies? All right. Of course, shall is quite formal sounding in reality, and so it's not used nearly as often as other modals. It's quite formal, quite polite. Shall I take your coat, for example? When you're being very polite with visitors at your house or something like that. Okay. When we use it in place of will, as Jonathan did, I shall I shall go to Spain in the spring. It sounds quite formal, polite and formal. Okay, Min, why don't you try should?
Should. We should visit her in hospital.
Okay. We should visit her in the hospital. Okay. Again, very similar to ought to. Should is used to show obligation or to give advice. Okay. We should visit her in hospital is perfectly fine if you're British. Here's another, nothing to do with modals, of course. Everything to do with articles. So in hospital is fine for British. Whoops. Is fine for British. Americans say use an article in the hospital. We should visit her in the hospital. Okay, Fritz. Pablo? Yes. Pablo?
Teacher,
Yes.
yes. What is the difference between shall and I I don't know, shall and can?
Shall and can.
Shall and can.
Okay. Good question. I shall go to Spain in the spring. It's very close to I will go to. It's okay, fine. It can be predictive, probability, a prediction, just like when we use future tense with will, which we're coming right up to here, actually, Pablo. We're making a prediction. Well, that's one of the functions of will in the future tense, to make a prediction. We use shall in that same way. Can, I can go to Spain in the spring, means there is a physical ability. It is possible.
It's an option.
You know, there's a big difference if I say, shall I go to the bathroom? Okay. Will I or won't I? It's like saying, will I go to the bathroom? It's a little strange. Can I go to the bathroom? Which is very common in English, to ask permission. Actually, what it really means is, am I physically able to go to the bathroom? I hope so. Shall I go to the bathroom basically means, will I go to the bathroom? I don't know. It's up to you entirely. Okay.
Shall is similar like I have to do something.
Have to? No, it's more, must is closer to have to. You must stop at the red light. You have to stop at the red light. I shall stop at the red light just means that, well, very close to will. I will stop at the red light. Okay.
And ought to is similar to might.
Ought to is very similar to
Ought.
should.
Should.
You should stop at the red light. You ought to stop at the red light. Okay, I'm giving you advice. Or I'm explaining that it's your obligation to do that. You should take off your shoes before you enter the house. All right, you ought to take off your shoes. All right.
Teacher, but I have another question. When I
Certainly.
use most is more strong phrase to give an order.
Indeed, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it certainly is. It's much more strong. That's correct, and I'm glad you said that. Modals, when you consider modals, there's a couple things you have to consider. What is the modal being used for? Is it used to show the odds of something happening, the probability, the degree of certainty? Degree is important. Jonathan is correct. So you can think about, are you using the modal to ask permission, to show obligation, to present the degree of probability, how much you believe something will or won't happen? Are you asking permission? Okay. When you're talking about obligation or probability, then you're looking at modals exactly as a matter of degree. So obligation, must, or have to are much stronger than should or ought to. Also, we can use must in a different way to show probability. It must rain today. All right, is obviously a lot stronger than it might rain today. It may rain today. It could rain simply means that it is one of many, many possibilities. Okay. So it's much weaker. Or we can, of course, use modals with not, with the negative. It might not rain today. Going in the other direction. it must rain today, or the other absolute on the other end of that, it won't rain today. Here's where we come up to will. Will and, of course, won't. Will not is contracted is won't. Okay. Pablo, you're up to will. Will or won't? Will he or won't he? Pablo, can you make a sentence with will, or you can make one with won't, even better.
I will do my homework today.
Okay. Or I won't do my homework today. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Either one of those would be grammatically correct. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Will and won't is very similar to must or must not. They're very strong. That's right. Okay. How about would? Roger?
Would you like to eat soup?
Would I like to? Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, it's a dark and rainy day here where I am, and I would like to eat soup. Okay, Roger's making me a very kind offer to eat soup. Okay, we use would. Okay, we use would in a bunch of different ways. Possibly to make an offer. Would you like some soup? Fine. Or I would like to go to Spain. Okay, now I'm kind of making a hypothetical prediction. And so that's when we get into using modals with conditional sentences, and that gets kind of tricky. In hypothetical conditional sentences, we can use modals, but usually we're going to use might or would. Probably not must or will. We use must or will in a different kind of conditional sentence. All right. If it rains, my roof will get wet. Well, certainly, of course. The roof of my house, the top of my house, of course it will get wet if it rains. If it rains, my roof must get wet, obviously. Duh. Okay, now what if I say, if there's a meteor shower, if there was a meteor shower, oh, I have to change tense. If there was a meteor shower, my house, my roof might get hit. Yeah, maybe it will, maybe it won't, and it's, besides that, it's a hypothetical situation. Or I could use would. My house would be hit by the meteorites. Okay, we're going to look at this in different ways, which is going to cause you to ask me different questions, which is fine. Okay, what are modal verbs? Okay, we're going to look at it in a different way. Modal verbs, modal auxiliary verbs, modal auxiliaries, they're called all of those things, or just plain modals. Okay, they give, what do? They give additional information about the function of the main verb that follows it, and they have a great variety of communicative functions. So we were just talking about that. One of the important things, you have to understand what is the function. Permission. Let's try giving me examples of modal verbs for the different functions. This is gonna, let's kick it up a notch, just maybe more difficult. Suna, can you use a modal verb to ask permission for something?
Can I read the book?
Can I read the book? Okay. Sure. We use can for permission. Can I go to the bathroom? More formally, more considered a little bit more polite, we use may or might. May I read the book? Might I go to the bathroom? All right, very good. Excellent. Jonathan, how about ability? Can you use a modal to show ability? Able to do something or not?
Yes, teacher. I can swim 3 miles.
Awesome, dude. Okay. Great. That's great, Jonathan. Wow. Are you a triathlete? Okay. Yes. Most often we use can, or we use could in the past tense. I could swim 3 miles when I was younger, for example. Very good. Min, how
Yeah.
about obligation?
I must do homework every day.
All right. Very good. You're a good student, Min. I must do homework. I should do homework. I ought to. Okay, those are showing obligation. And you can also have negative obligations, of course. I mustn't smoke in here, for example. Ooh, whoa, there we go. Wait a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. Prohibition, which is very similar to obligation. Okay? Prohibition. Pablo? Talk about something that's prohibited, not allowed.
Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Prohibited, meaning not allowed.
Prohibited.
Mm-hmm.
You you should not go. You should not go into this place.
Okay. Okay. You've got the right idea because you're definitely going to use not. You're going to use the negative in prohibition statements. That's correct. But probably, basically, prohibition is like strong obligation. You mustn't
Must.
go into this place. And actually, I was using a modal expression, not allowed. You're not allowed to go into this place. Or you mustn't go into this place. Of course, we can use other English expressions. It is forbidden to go in this place. It is off limits to go in this place. There are other ways to express prohibition that don't use a modal.
Ought to is like an obligation to. Ought to.
Ought to is very much obligation. You ought to do your homework today, for example. Definitely. That's right. Very good, Pablo.
And
Okay,
shall is similar an obligation.
Sorry?
Shall is like
Shall?
an obligation. Yes. I have a mistake with this too.
Well, shall is more like possibility, probability, actually. I shall go to the market today.
Okay.
Or kind of permission. Shall I get you a donut? For example. Okay.
Thanks.
Thou, you shall. Okay, it could be really. However, you know what? You shall not pass. Actually, when I think about it, Pablo, I can use shall to express prohibition even. You shall not pass. Like Merlin in okay, in the cave there. Okay. Never mind. All right, Roger, lack of necessity. Oh, ooh, this is a tough one.
Teacher, yeah, I really don't know which one of those can be applied to lack of necessity. I have
Probably
to
none
leave
of them.
advice, prohibition, obligation, even possibility, but lack of necessity.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it, so not really fair for me to ask this question. We often we often use the construction have to or don't have to. You don't have to take off your shoes. Okay, for example. Don't worry about it. You don't have to take off your shoes. It's not necessary to take off your shoes. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, well, mostly that's the one we use. Yeah, you don't have something you're not obligated to do. It's not a prohibition. You don't have to do something. Or we also use the verb allow. It's allowed to wear your shoes, for example. Someone has a very loud breathing. I'm not sure, but you can definitely hear quite a bit of noise. I'm not sure where it's coming from, though. Okay, advice. Suna, give me some advice.
You look so tired. You should take relax.
You should tie your shoes. Well, yeah, definitely. Advice should or shouldn't, ought to, ought not to is also possible, but rarely used because, of course, it's just plain hard to say. You ought not to tie your shoes, or you ought not to do something. By the way, sounds a little bit more formal when we use ought to instead of should. Yes, should and ought to are used to give advice. Right. Okay, possibility. Jonathan, possibility, probability are virtually this. Well, possibility. Okay, is it possible?
I think maybe you might buy a new car the next year.
Okay. Okay, these are very close, can be very close in meaning, probability and possibility, but you might buy a new car next year is probably probability. There's one thing that you have to be clear on, okay? Might or may, you're talking about probability. Possibility, think about it more like, is it actually physically even possible? All right, okay, it could rain. Could, can, can't. Basically, we actually use to show if it's even physically possible. When we say could to show probability, what we really mean is it's one of many possibilities. Okay, the economy could crash next year. It could, or it could improve, or it could remain the same. There's lots of possibilities. So when we use could, we're talking about one of many probabilities. So very close, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really. Possibility, probability. Again, most modal verbs are followed by an infinitive without to. All right, moving on. You must stop when the traffic light turns red, not you must to stop. You should see, what? You should see to the doctor. What? That's weird. That's a mistake. You should see the doctor. That has a totally different meaning. Very funny. If you should see to the doctor, that means you have to check the doctor. This is a correct sentence, but a little misleading. You should see the doctor. That means you should go talk to the doctor about your own health problems. You should see to the doctor means you should check the doctor, make sure the doctor's okay. Oops. Okay. Here you go. Here's another one, Roger. I forgot. Oh, another way to express lack of necessity. You need not, or needn't, or don't need. There are a lot of tomatoes in the fridge. You need not buy any. Okay. A lack of necessity to do something. Need not do it. Okay, and then of course the exception, we always use the infinitive with ought to. Okay, man. Bye-bye. Bye, man. There she goes. All right. Looking at it in a different way. Let's talk about modal verbs in a different way and see if this brings up any more questions. All right. English modal verbs are basically, they are auxiliary verbs. They're always combined with other verbs to show the complete meaning. Okay, we have single word modals we looked at earlier in the class. Would, should, can, could. Well, here they are. Can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, would. Phrasal modals, which we have not looked at really, only briefly, are phrases like be able to, be going to, be supposed to, had better. Ooh, interesting. Have to, have got to, ought to, used to. Also, consider these are all positive. Consider that these can all be negative, I think. Be unable to. Ooh, notice I don't say be not able to. I say be unable to. Be not going to. Be not supposed to. He is not supposed to do that. He had better not go there. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't. He has not. Have got to. He has. He has. I have not got to do something. He has not got to do something. He ought not to. He didn't used to skateboard. All right, we tried all these single word modals. Let's test how we do with the phrasal modals. You can, we're gonna try, I'm gonna have you guys try this. You can use affirmative, a positive, or you can use a negative, whichever you would like. Okay. Pablo, I'm going to start with you. Be able to.
An example?
Yes, an example.
He is able to he is able to work and eat gum.
He's able to work and eat what? Eat rum?
He's able to walk and he's able to walk and no, I don't know, and sing a song.
And sing a song. Okay. Okay. Don't overthink it, Pablo. Okay, he is able to work. All right. Instead of be able to, what single word modal might you use, Pablo? Instead of he's able to?
He can.
Yeah, exactly. He can. Very good. All right. Again, remember with the single word modals, we use a bare infinitive. With phrasal modals, look, they all have to, and then a verb. He's able to do. He's able to work. Except for had better. All right. ought to, okay, you can consider a phrasal modal, I guess. It's different ways to look at it, which is what I was talking about. You can look at it as a phrasal modal, or you can look at it as a single word modal, the only one where you use to. Roger, be going to.
He's going to study modals all night long.
Okay. Oh God. Wow. All right. And what single word modal could you use instead of this phrase?
I guess the shall.
Okay, shall is perfect. He shall study modals all night long, or of course will. I mean, because really, be going to is another way to use simple future tense. He will study. He is going to study. Sure. Okay. Suna. Supposed to. And by the way, you may hear many native speakers, especially Americans, mispronounce this word. Well, reduce pronunciation of this word. And sometimes it may actually sound like, kind of sounds like supposed to, or even supposed to. I'm supposed to go to the mall later. Okay. Supposed to. Just so you know. Okay, Suna.
Okay. He's not supposed to eat.
Very good. That's good. He is not supposed to eat. And what single word modal would we use instead of supposed to?
Must?
He's not supposed to eat. Actually, it's closer to advice. It's closer to should and ought to. He shouldn't eat. All right. It's not. He mustn't eat is a little different. You're totally prohibited from doing that activity. It's a little closer to advice. Hey, you're not supposed to do that. All right. Okay, it's not as strong as must. Supposed to. Okay. Again, dealing with degree. Supposed to is not really that strong. It's advice. You're supposed to put the round peg in the round hole. All right, that's advice, for example. Jonathan, tricky one, had better.
Okay, teacher, I will try. Juan has better that pass the quiz tomorrow.
Okay, one more time. Juan had better.
Juan has better than pass the quiz tomorrow.
Okay, Juan had better pass the quiz tomorrow.
Okay.
Is okay. Juan had better pass the quiz tomorrow, or else.
That is not necessary.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
it isn't. And just when you say it, my brain. Whoops, not 3 T's here. My brain automatically adds the or else. You better do something or else. We often use this construction or else what. You know, it's very vague, obviously. I just throwing it in there because in the way that Jonathan used it, it would be very common to hear some kind of he better pass it or he won't get the job. It'd be very common to throw in an or phrase with had better to show consequences. All right. Sometimes very vague. Or else. Had better is very interesting because it's basically advice. It's basically should or supposed to, but it's much stronger than should or supposed to. Had better is very close to must or have to, which is coming right up here, or have got to, but not quite. All right, had better is kind of just below must, which is very strong obligation, okay, but more than should. He should pass the test tomorrow. He must pass the test tomorrow. He had better pass the test tomorrow. It's somewhere in between. Okay. Pablo, how about have to?
Have to.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do this paper faster.
We have to do this paper faster? Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Pablo, no, all right, that's fine. What is the single word modal we can use instead of have to?
Must.
Yeah, definitely. We have to be there by 9 o'clock. We must be there by 9 o'clock. And just like have and have got, have to and have got to are pretty much interchangeable. We have got to be there by 9 o'clock. Okay, even when we're using phrasal modal, just like I have a car, I have got a car, you can say it either way in English. It's really the same thing with phrasal modals. We've got to do our homework. We have to do our homework. There's really no difference in meaning with got or not got. Usually it's a matter of collocation. In British, same thing. Doesn't matter.
The British use have got.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. They use have got to show possession, to show I've got a cold, for example. We show to express he has got a cold, to express somebody has a sickness. And in modals, British and American English are pretty much the same, Pablo, in regards to the have and have got thing. All right, ought to we already discussed. It's basically the same as should. So what about used to, Roger? Oh boy.
No, but used to is not to refer to what I normally do in my life. I used to eat in the morning.
Life. Did in your life, actually, but don't do anymore. I used to swim every day, for example. Okay. Used to. This is a very unique phrasal modal. It's used for one purpose only. Very commonly used. I used to go to that place every weekend, but meaning the no discuss that. Never he may to know. He may knows. Again, we discussed that. We get rid of the S, so he may know the answer. We can't use, for example, a gerund form. All right. He may knowing, wrong. He may knew, past tense, no. We don't conjugate with an S. We don't have an ing, past tense, past participle known. All of these are wrong. Okay, all of these are wrong. Here is the correct answer. He may know the answer. That's it. Simple form of the verb. Phrasal modals, however, do include two. I just made note of that. He's able to help us. He's going to help us. He's supposed to help us. He has to help us. He's got to help us. He has to help us. He's got to help us. Maybe he's got to. He has got to. Maybe the have got may have slightly more dramatic emphasis. Possibly. Really, no real difference in meaning. He has to help us. He's got to help us. He oughta. He used to help us, meaning in the past. Okay, phrasal modals have two. Except for had better. Instead, just like the singular modals, we use the simple form after had better. So he had better help us. Not he'd better to help us. Okay. Another way to think about modals is that you can conceive of them that they show meaning. They show someone's feeling or attitude toward the action or situation. Here's another important point. Every modal verb has more than one use and or meaning. Okay, I think you noticed that as we look through. Okay, we can use it to mean probability. We can use it to ask permission. We can use it to show obligation. So that all modal verbs have multiple uses. Here's a last interesting point to bring up. Okay, here's where even teachers, professors, and know-it-all people who know everything about grammar sometimes will argue. In some grammar books, dare and need are included in the list of modals because of their behavior in some situations. The way they function when they mean behavior, they mean the way the word functions grammatically here. Dare can be used with or without to and a simple verb in negative statements and in questions. So, he didn't dare leave early. He didn't dare one of these actions. When we use dare, we may follow it with a bare infinitive or regular infinitive. Need can be used with not and a simple verb. He need not leave early. How else could I say this, Suna? Is there another way to say this? He need not leave early.
Another example.
Well, I mean, just changing the words around. He doesn't need to leave early. And notice when I have does not need to leave early. Notice now I'm back with the to again. Okay.
Teacher.
These are sort of strange. Let's see if we can. Yes. Yes.
They are no need, not, and doesn't need or don't need are used like with the same frequency, or one of them is more formal than another, or
Okay, very good question. I think this construction here, he need not leave early, certainly sounds much more formal to me. Definitely. You need not remove your shoes when you enter. Well, that sounds very formal, and it sounds almost more like something that would be written, you know, posted on the wall or something. You don't need to take off your shoes. Sounds much more informal, conversational in reality. So yeah, I'd say there is a definite difference.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good question. Got just a couple minutes left. Let's see if we can you make a sentence with dare? Dare to do something or dare not to do something? Do you know Jonathan, do you dare make a sentence? Do you dare to make a sentence? Oh, Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, teacher.
All right.
Maybe you dare. Let me think. You dare learn another language?
Do you dare learn another language? Very
Did you
good.
dare? Exactly.
Okay. And notice that it would be also grammatically perfectly correct to say, do you dare to learn another language? Okay. So there's the weird thing with dare, which again is some grammar books. Even we don't know. Even English speakers, even professors and teachers don't know. Is it really a modal verb or not? You may get two different answers. Okay. But again, the peculiarity, the strange thing about it is it's perfectly normal to say with a bare infinitive or with the regular to simple form of the verb. Either one. Doesn't really matter. Okay, and there we go. Any last questions about modals before I end the class? Because I've got another class coming up. Any last questions? Dare, need to, any of those modals? Okie dokie. Tomorrow at this same time, I will be having a class and we will be practicing using modals of probability and possibility, all sorts of different constructions and all sorts of practice. So hopefully some of you can join me then. Otherwise, I have to go. I'm going to be right back here in a nice, casual, relaxed conversation class. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, teacher. Great class.
Bye.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.